Welcome back to Rocket Talk. My name is Connor, and as always, I'm joined by Johnny Lorum and Luke Peterson. We got a great episode for you. Let's just dive right on into it with nerd news now. So, you guys probably heard the actor who plays Elongated Man in The Flash, Hartley Sawyer. He's been fired for some rather offensive tweets. He ended up deleting his Twitter, and he apologized on Instagram. Nevertheless, the studio thought that his tweets were, rather atrocious, and they cut ties with him. I don't know. Have you guys seen the tweets?
Yeah, I saw that, and it was when I saw that he was fired for the tweets, I wasn't surprised. Just in this day and age, you got to be careful what you put on social media, and it can come back to bite you. And even if it was something from like 6-7 years ago, but he lost his job, which it's always unfortunate. Even if it was meant to be a joke, or even if it was meant to be serious, whatever it is. They now have to figure out a way what they're going to do with this character, whether they write him off or replace the actor. Johnny, you can obviously speak more of it, of how important he is to the Flash, since you watch that more than Connor and I do. But we see this every few months. It seems like some other celebrity is being fired, being canceled for something. But it is what it is.
I get it. It makes sense to me, it's one of those things that he was, definitely an adult when he made these things, and I don't think that making tweets like this should go unpunished. So it makes sense to me why they decided to let him go. As far as his role in the show, he came in, and I believe it was season 4 is when his character got introduced, and from what all the people that I've spoken to about it before all this stuff happened, as far as his character is concerned, he was kind of an annoying character and an annoying addition to the cast. but that only lasted for about half a season, and then there was a particular episode or 2 episodes that he really, really redeemed himself, and ever since then he's been really great reluctant hero that went from kind of a sleazeball to a superhero, and he was a part of Team Flash eventually, and he was a really great character. So it's gonna be kind of hard to see him not on the show. Like I totally get why they wouldn't want the actor on anymore, but and I don't think that this is the kind of character that should be recasted. But yeah, it's gonna be kind of a shame to see him not on Flash anymore. Because they are actually setting him up for a long-term love interest on the Flash, and that never came to be by the end of the newest season, and it looks like it never will now. So
perhaps it could be like a James Gunn kind of thing, where he's fired momentarily but then rehired. I'm ignorant of how important his character is to the audience, but I mean, perhaps that could happen.
Perhaps, but I don't know. I'm expecting him to stay fired and not return on the show, because there's been, even Grant Gustin, who is the Flash, he spoke out and said, yeah, he should be fired, and it's a shame. He said, he's a good friend of mine, but I think that this is something that we can't hold back on. So I get it. Stephen Amell, who played Green Arrow, he said that I stand by Grant Gustin, who said that even though it's hard to say that about your own friend, it's the truth. And so he's getting there's support on all sides about firing Hartley Sawyer. So I don't think that it's going to be rescinded at all.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is what it is, and I guess we can keep up with it as more information comes out in the future. Yeah, let's just go on to our next thing. We've got a couple of trailers we wanted to touch on. First off, David Koepp dropped a surprise Blumhouse movie, a trailer for a Blumhouse movie, You Should Have Left. Now, this is starring Kevin Bacon and Amanda Seyfried, and it comes from the producers of The Invisible Man. Have you guys seen the trailer, and what did you guys think of it?
Yeah. So, I mean, it looks... I was looking up to this. It was originally a book that came out in 2017 by Daniel Kelman, or however you say his last name. It's from the trailer. It looks like this book is very much inspired by like a Stephen King. It gave me a lot, like very much like The Shining and other just kind of surreal type of horror that you get with like a Stephen King book, like The Shining and Carrie and all that. So, Kevin Bacon's great. So what's crazy about it too is that with the whole pandemic, this was supposed to be a theatrical movie, and now it's video on demand that's coming out in just a couple days of when we're recording. By the time this episode posts, it'll actually be live on demand. So, I mean, it looked interesting. I don't know if I'm gonna, spend money to go watch it myself. I'm not really into psychological horror movies as much as you guys may be, but it's still cool to see.
Sure, Johnny, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm all for it. I watch I watch everything, and horror is no exception. So I'm excited for it. And this will probably be the first movie that I'll see going, not necessarily out of the pandemic, because we're definitely still in the middle of it. But definitely this might be the first movie that I see in months due to the pandemic. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm not expecting anything whatsoever. I'm expecting to go out and probably forget it after a week or two. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So
the trailer looked. I mean, not gonna lie, the trailer didn't really capture my attention more than any other horror movie. I thought it, based on the trailer, it looked rather cookie cutter to me. But that being said, the Invisible Man trailer didn't make me want to go see the film, but then it ended up getting great reviews, and so now I do want to see it. This is from the same producers, so it could have the potential. It's got 2 certified stars, so it has every potential to blow our expectations out of the water.
Yeah, which with everything that we've seen with some of these other movies like this, it's who knows, but I mean, yeah, like this David Koepp, he's been involved in a lot of good movies. He was a writer for the original Jurassic Park and for Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, Angels and Demons. He's going to be a writer for Indiana Jones 5, so he's done a lot. But and this, he has a great cast, but we'll see, because some of the other Blumhouse productions, since they're a lot more of your lower budget horror films, like the Paranormal Activity films, like those, I don't think they're that good. And so,
we're amazing. I know. I agree.
I like a couple of them, but after a while, it's like, I don't know.
But I mean, so we will see. So there's been a lot of good and a lot of bad that's come out of the Blumhouse umbrella of movies. So, but I mean, since they're lower budget, that's kind of what you get sometimes. But hey, I'm sure it'll do decently well too in the video on demand with Kevin Bacon as the lead role as well.
Yes.
So, I may not watch it. Maybe Johnny will mention, and he'll enjoy it. Hopefully, he likes it if he does. But hey, at least we get another movie coming out, so that's good.
Yes. We get this, and then moving on to the next trailer. Unfortunately, one that we're all looking forward to, especially Luke, has been pushed back a couple of weeks. Tenet has been delayed to July 31st. Luke, I'm so sorry.
Hey, it's okay. It's a bummer, but it only got delayed 2 weeks. It's not like one of those where, one of the first big movies that got delayed because of the pandemic was the Fast and Furious one that's coming out. 9, I think. I can't remember which Fast movie it is.
What a shame.
But they delayed whatever the new Fast and Furious movie was, 11 months, and that was cool.
Yeah.
But so with everything that's kind of coming back right around the end of July, it makes sense. I do know that with it, Warner Brothers is also re-releasing Inception, since that movie turns 10 years around the same time that Tenet was supposed to originally come out. So they're going to have Inception back in some theaters that are going to be open on July 17th. And then they're going to have the movie come out July 31st, which is the same day, too, that the NBA is supposed to restart as well.
All right, yeah, I'm for sure gonna butt in seat for Tenet, and actually I've never seen Inception, so I actually might go and see that in theaters too.
Oh, you should just go watch. What you should just do is you should just go watch every Christopher Nolan movie, all back to back before you go see Tenet.
That would actually watch be pretty awesome.
So I mean, you'd have 11 movies to watch before you see Tenet. You have Following, Memento, Insomnia, Batman Begins, Prestige, The Dark Knight, Inception, Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar, and then Dunkirk. And what a fun run, especially that run of Prestige, Dark Knight, and Inception back to back. Oof. The Prestige might be my favorite film of his, and The Dark Knight Rises and Interstellar are 2 of my other favorite films of all time. So
Interstellar, I actually like. That was one of the very first movies to thoroughly mindfuck me. I loved that film.
So, just wait till you see Inception then.
Oof.
I have a short list.
Go watch The Prestige. That definitely is one.
I have a short list of movies that I'm planning on seeing in the next few days, and The King of Staten Island is the next one I'm going to watch. But then the one after that is Prestige, and then there was one other movie. Oh, Hitman's Bodyguard is one that it's from like 2 years ago, I think.
Oh yeah,
it's Ryan Reynolds, and I never got to see that, but I was going to watch that as well. But I'm Prestige is one of the ones that everyone who's seen it says that it's good.
It's amazing. So he made it right after Batman Begins, and so Christian Bale's in it, Hugh Jackman, David Bowie is Nikola Tesla, Scarlett Johansson and Michael Caine, Andy Serkis, they all play some minor roles in it as well. Yeah, it's so good. I remember every time I show it to people, it's like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. So definitely watch that.
I'm looking forward to it.
I need to see that. All classics. Moving on to the next trailer. Also, speaking of classics, Bill and Ted Face the Music. A trailer was just released. Have you guys seen it? What did you guys think you did
excited.
See it?
I remember, so back when Blockbuster was still a thing, when Netflix was first starting to get big with it being by mail, one of the things that Blockbuster had was a similar thing. It was called Blockbuster Total Access. And so with the membership, you could go to get a movie in the mail, and once you're done watching the movie or whatever, your disc of season 2 of 24, you could go to a physical brick and mortar Blockbuster and swap out the disc for whatever thing you wanted. Let's say you get let's say you got your DVD copy of The Prestige in the mail for Blockbuster. You watch it, then you go to Blockbuster and you want to, this was more of a thriller. I want to watch some goofy comedy, and then you can go and rent Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and you just swap it out that way. So that was actually how I first saw Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey first before I saw Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, because the guy at Blockbuster recommended it to me, and I was like, okay, sure, whatever. And it was great. But yeah, I love those two movies so much. They're so stupid, but that's what makes them so good.
Exactly. But there's also people, it's a crapshoot when you have a reboot of a beloved franchise like this. They're a little bit older
sequel,
now,
though,
so it's gonna look. Who knows? Some people might have problems with them being older, and they're still kind of doing that. Dude, let's keep things excellent and party on, dudes. I don't know. Personally, when I saw that trailer, I just got excited for it. I didn't care that they were a little bit older. I don't care if it's been years.
It helps that Keanu Reeves has barely aged a day since.
True.
So Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure came out in '89, and Bogus Journey was in '91, and it's like he barely looks older than what he did.
Wow,
almost 30 years ago.
Yeah, he's ageless. Johnny, did you see the trailer, and what did you think?
I did. I've never seen a Bill and Ted movie before.
Okay, so moving on, Johnny, you can. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add, just because, like I said, I'd never seen one before. I might go watch this one because, I'm willing to. I don't have much of an attachment to it.
Mm-hmm. I'm definitely going with cautious optimism. But I mean, if you keep your expectations low, it's more likely that they are met. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Luke, you sound like you're looking forward. Johnny, you should definitely watch both Bill and Ted movies.
Kid Cudi's going to be in the new one too, so it's like, what more can you want?
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm super excited. I'm definitely gonna have to go and either find, because I don't think they're on any streaming service right now, so I'm gonna definitely have to go and rent some of these and rewatch them before this comes out.
For sure. And it's been so long since I've seen these Bill and Ted that it's basically like I haven't seen them. It's been like over a decade. Moving on, we still have more movie announcements to go. The sequel to Into the Spider-Verse has begun production. Woot. You guys have seen Into the Spider-Verse, so I'm
very excited for that one. That movie is amazing. It's one of the best Spider-Man. What a great time to be a Spider-Man fan right now, honestly, with for that sure. And with the can plug the Rocket Talk Mini that is also up on the PS5 reveal, with how successful the PS4 and the new PS5 Spider-Man have been, and then the Tom Holland movies. It's a good time to be a Spider-Man fan right now, and with arguably one of, if not the best Spider-Man films getting a sequel. I am so ready for it. That first one is visually one of the coolest movies I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely! I love its comic book style. It actually looks like it's straight from comic book pages, and I thought that was what a lot of comic book movies have been missing. Animated comic book films, that is. And I think it made $375 million or something like that on a budget of $90 million. So yeah, they raked in some serious cash, and I think it's going to be just as, if not more, successful with this sequel if they can do it right. Definitely looking forward to that. And then finally, shifting gears away from movies but into video games. The Last of Us 2 is going to be coming out, and in an effort to promote it, they put out an official Last of Us podcast series. They have an episode 0 and an episode 1. I know I just listened to the podcast, and holy shit, it was amazing. What did you guys think?
I mean, I've talked a lot about The Last of Us for pretty much this whole podcast. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's a lot of people's, beloved game. It has 200 plus Game of the Year awards and 10 out of 10s all over the internet. It's I love it. The whole idea of a deep dive podcast is always something I really like. One of my girlfriend's favorite is Office Ladies, where they go over every episode, and there's ones like that. Having one where we're having the host of Christian Spicer through each part of the game, and having people from the game, as from Neil Druckmann, the director, and Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson, who are Joel and Ellie, and then other Naughty Dog workers, just to talk about everything. It helps expand what people know about the game, because I know a lot about it since I played it and consumed a lot of media. But this can be someone like Johnny, who he has seen the cutscenes, he hasn't played it, but he knows what happens, and he can find out a lot more about the behind the scenes stuff that happens. It's pretty awesome. I was a big fan of the first episode, which covered the first part of the game of Summer. So the first probably hour and a half, 2 hours of the game was covered in it.
Yes, and seriously, it was heartbreaking, even though they were breaking down the scene, which some people say if you listen to it behind the scenes, it kind of takes away from the magic, quote unquote. I don't think so at all. I think it expanded on it so much, and it even though I have not played the game, it almost sounded like they were making a movie for the first part of it before they actually started bringing in people that worked on the physics of the game and stuff like that. And I think there was so much. These actors, the voice actors, they have to put in, I think, just as much of an effort to become the character as someone who's going to actually be filmed on screen. And I think they really nailed it. And it talks about the emotional attachment they have to their characters. And specifically when
spoiler, Joel's daughter dies, and
yes,
it hurts me every time Tommy says "oh no," my heart drops. I could pull the scene up right now, listen to it, and Tommy says "oh no," and my heart will just instantly drop, and it's just
yeah.
Why?
Yeah, but he had so much of an investment in it, but he ended up having to do several takes, and he said it kind of took away from the magic. However, the reason they had to do the takes is because he's hearing sorrow, but he's not hearing the he's not hearing a father's sorrow. He wants more of I can fix this before he realized, kind of like a state of denial before he gets into pure sorrow, which made him realize that this is the best director that he's ever worked with ever. And that director's name is Luke?
Neil Druckmann.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so here's the thing too. So the podcast will touch on a lot of these things, but if you want more on this as well, there is a documentary that came with the Last of Us game as well. It's called Grounded. It's roughly an hour and a half. It's on YouTube. It's called Grounded: The Making of The Last of Us. PlayStation posted it, but it goes over the story about how the death of Sarah Steen and how it took a lot of takes because Troy Baker initially just completely lost it, and that's not the direction that they were trying to go, and how many takes it took. It goes into that and some other in depth about the acting and the design and all that. So it'll be fun to go and rewatch Grounded after the podcast is done too, and see how much they expanded on what was already said on that documentary as well. But
please send that link. That'd be awesome.
Yes, very excited for this sequel. I'm so excited. Last of Us 2 comes out less than a week.
I'm looking forward to it. I haven't heard the first episode yet. It is out, but I haven't listened to it yet. But with this Last of Us Part 2 coming out, I'm looking forward to it. I don't have a PlayStation yet, but I'm gonna get the new PS5 when it comes out, and I'm going to get the Last of Us Part 2 once the PS5 comes out. So hopefully I'll be able to experience it, firsthand. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to last until then to not watch cutscenes or know about spoilers, but I'm not really sure if I should just, watch cutscenes or experience it for myself like 6 months down the line. I don't know. But either way, I'm excited about this podcast, and I'm excited to see more about the people that were behind the making of this game, because it is what I'm hoping to be the future of gaming. Because if they can put so much heart and work into this one game, then I'm hoping that a lot of games in the future do the same thing.
Still kind of sticking with the podcast topic, I did want to ask you guys, what would we like to see? What video game would we like to see receive an official podcast?
Honestly, really, any like well received one would be good, or honestly any bad one. I would love to hear one about just games that had like crazy development. Like if we got one about Sonic 06 and just all the crazy stuff happened, like that'd be amazing. But I honestly I could just go on and on about games I like to see. Like there's a ton of gaming podcasts out there, but this is the only one that I know of that is a official podcast put out by the publisher or developer on one game. Like there's some fan ones you can find on Sonic or Mario or Call of Duty or whatever, but this is the only one I know that they focus on one singular game, and it's being made with the official like developers and actors and all of that. Because right now I search a video game on Spotify in the podcast section, and there's kind of funny games. There's IGN. There's just a bunch of random ones. Classic gaming podcast, Remember the Game, retro game podcast. One I've talked about a couple times, From the Shelf, where a musician from the band Ghost Key runs with his buddy Nick, where they go and do different games. So there's a ton of them out there, but there's not a whole lot out there that's like this scale of The Last of Us. The show, you mentioned a couple weeks ago, you've been watching Chernobyl. Chernobyl has an official podcast on that that goes along with it, but that's an HBO show. That's not a video game. And I get The Last of Us is kind of a whole different animal when it, compared to something like a Mario 64 or a Guitar Hero 3 or something like that. But like, there's a lot that game has that it probably should have had a podcast a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm. Johnny, what about you?
I would say I would love to hear a Platonic podcast, because there's a lot. I mean, so far they only have the two games that they've made, but I would love to hear that. I would theoretically love to hear a Rareware podcast, but I'm really worried that that wouldn't be so much about the classics as it would be about what they are now, and not a lot of Rare people from the 90s and early 2000s are still there with Rare anymore. So it's more about like, our predecessors did this, so I don't think that's as impressive. But yeah, I would love to see it, love to listen to a Platonic podcast about the making behind the two ukulele games, and then eventually when they make a new video game, whatever that's like, they can go in depth with those as well, because those are a lot of voices that I would love to hear more about. And I mean, Grant Kirkhope is you guys know, is one of my favorite my favorite video game musician, and I would love to have, he would definitely be like a hot star guest to be on the podcast, so that would be great. Yeah.
And this is just a hypothetical I wanted to throw out for you guys. If you guys could be on the team that helps produce a podcast for your favorite movie, video game, show, what would it be? Or just like one of those in general.
What would our role be?
No, not what your role be. What would be the media, the show or the movie or video game?
I mean, there's so many. I mean, I guess I would do a Sonic one, because like there's that one's so easy to have. Just like you could if you could get them to talk about it. There's just so much crazy stuff that happened. Like I brought up Sonic 06. that just the development that game went through, and the fact that it even came out, even as broken as it is still amazing.
I would love, any of the classic Donkey Kong games, or Banjo-Kazooie, like those, hearing about some of the things that like didn't get to make it in, and I have a lot of questions about some of the theories that are going on, and like some of the cut worlds and where they would have been placed had they been in the game still, and a lot of time has passed since then, so even when people get to ask these things now, they're like, I just don't remember. And it's like, oh man, I wish you did though. Like, dig deep, tell me what But some of these things just get lost to time and you just forget. And but yeah, I wish, I would love to maybe go back like 15 years and do exactly that, because that would be perfect to get maybe the memory is still more fresh, and have, an easier time remembering some of the things that they did or almost did.
Yeah, when you make a podcast and you have some sort of interview going on, like if it's like a disaster like Sonic 06, or maybe even it doesn't have to be a disaster, it could be a completely successful video game or show or whatever. When you ask questions to a guest, you probably have to assume that they've answered them 100 times, and they might get maybe defensive if the project was a disaster, or they'll just get bored and frustrated and be like, well, I've answered this question 100 times. How could you not know? Stuff like that. So like it like making a podcast would be amazing when you have awesome guests on, really big time guests, but also you have to like, there's a balance between being fresh, having fresh questions, but also like asking the questions everyone wants to hear for your audience. Yeah. So yeah, all of that sounds great. I'm glad we have podcasts like this. Hopefully more video games or shows or something follow suit, because it's interesting. I love hearing production side of things. Yeah. So that concludes it for Nerd News Now, and we can go into our main topic of the day. And by the time this episode comes out, we will have had a birthday from...
No, it's the day after.
Is it the day after? What day is today? The 16th?
The 14th is today.
That's today's the 14th and it's not the 16th.
But by the time this comes out, we'll almost have a birthday boy.
Hey.
Yeah, so Luke, you are going to be 60?
Yes, I'll be 60.
Yeah, something
like that. I look
right
for my age. I look like I'm 25, but I'll be 60.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I don't even know what your secret is.
I'll be 25, yeah.
Yeah, and so we just kind of want to have a podcast dedicated to our buddy Luke, and just kind of hear all about him, and make him feel super uncomfortable as we listen to and judge his life story.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah.
It better be interesting, because if you're boring, we're going to cut all of this.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to just fill it with 10 hours of Darth Vader breathing.
Good 10 hours of oh no, or moip. Exactly.
Moip. Yeah. So Luke, we can start, I guess, from the beginning, but we also want to go a little bit deeper, because there is some of these questions that'll be kind of answered on episode 0 when we introduce who we are and stuff like that. But I'd really love to go more into your inspiration and stuff, why you like what you do. Yeah, so let's just, I guess, dive into some of these questions. Your first video games in your first, I guess we can, not just video games, we also want to get into music, but let's start off with video games, because that seems to be where you feel at home. So your first video game, who introduced you to what title?
So it would most likely be my brothers that would have got it, because I have 2 older brothers. One is going to be, one is going to be 32 in September. The other one will be 30 this upcoming March. So they're both a few years older than me. So by the time that I was getting to about 4 or 5 years old in the late 90s or 2000s, they were 10, 11, 8, 9 years old. So like they were already playing Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon and all that. So I couldn't tell you exactly what game they showed me first. I have a lot of early memories, though, with the Crash and Spyro games. That's where a lot of my early memories can really delve from. And then we were one of the few people that did also buy into the Dreamcast hype, and we had a Dreamcast, and so that's how I got introduced to into the little blue blur of Sonic himself. So I can't tell you, oh, for sure it was in 1999 it was this exact game, but it was around that time that I got introduced to Sonic, Crash, and Spyro on the PlayStation 1 and Dreamcast, and I just immediately got hooked. Especially the two that I was drawn to the most was Sonic Adventure 2 and Crash Team Racing, as you would know, since I've talked about those two games a lot on this podcast and a lot just in general. So it just was ones that I Crash Team Racing was a little easier for me to grasp compared to the Crash Bandicoot games, just because, especially like Crash 1 is super hard. So, but so I was able to get hold of Crash Team Racing just a little easier. But then as I got a little better and was able to beat some of the Crash levels, I also started playing Sonic games. But this was back when it was pretty easy to scratch a disc, and when you're a 5-year-old, you scratch up a lot of discs. So I remember Sonic Adventure didn't fully work; only certain levels worked. Where Sonic Adventure 2, I could basically do everything, and so I really fell in love with that game. And just over the next few years, as I got into school age, I just kept playing. We went to the PS2, and I would still go back to Sonic Adventure 2 and Crash Team Racing, even though we'd have newer, better games. But those two games really stuck with me as I grew up and started playing a lot more. I mainly stuck to the platformer and racing and adventure type of games as a kid. And then another big milestone in terms of my gaming career would have been in the late 2000s, right around 2008, when Call of Duty 4 was blowing up. That was really when I got into first-person shooters. It was going back to the Blockbuster thing. With the membership, once a month, you got a coupon for a free gamer movie rental. And since we could just swap out whatever disc we got in the mail for a movie, then we just used it for a game rental, especially since back then it was like $3 to rent a movie for a week, and it was like $7 to rent a game for like 5 days. So it was a lot better to go and do a game rental. And so I used it almost every month, but my brother asked if he could use it to get Call of Duty 4, and I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then I got hooked on it as well. And that summer I started playing online, and then I didn't get World at War, but then started Modern Warfare 2. I started getting every Call of Duty at release, and that became a big part, especially when you're a young teenager. You're not working, so you're mowing lawns to get some money, but it's not like you're working adult jobs where you can just go out and buy 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 video games a year. You're only getting a couple besides your birthday and Christmas. So that was the nice thing about Call of Duty, is I could save some money up in the summer and then get that game, and the $60 I spent in November each year would last me a whole year. I got so much time out of the Call of Duty series in the late middle school, early high school days. And I over time I slowly started playing some other stuff. I got interested in The Last of Us when that came out, Portal 2, and, 2 more games became some of my favorites. And then more recently, I just have been just kind of picking and choosing just other ones that look interesting to try out. Wolfenstein, God of War have been some other games I've played recently that I've loved. But really, it all still comes back to Crash and Sonic, where those two games kind of cemented my love for video games. And there are some of the ones that they get announced in their instant day one purchases for me still on a lot of the games in those series now. So
it sounds like you've always been involved with geek culture and you haven't necessarily left. But what other interests did you pick up along the way that people would be surprised about?
So I guess not really surprising fully. I got really into Star Wars. As someone who grew up in, I was 4 years old when Episode 1 came out. So I was at that perfect age where the prequels were able to get me interested in as well as the classics. So I remember watching all those. I saw Episode 1, 2, and 3 all in theaters when they came out, and so those are some of the big. I've seen every Star Wars movie except for the original trilogy in theaters now, and Solo. But being able to see that in theaters helped shape my life and becoming a big fan of Star Wars, and that meant I was playing some of the extended universe games and watching some of the shows. besides that, I was really into cartoons as a kid as well. Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, shows like Ed, Edd and Eddy, SpongeBob, like most other kids my age. I loved those. But I can't really think of anything, I guess, that would be like surprising. Like it was like a big thing if you would have went to little 6, 7, 8-year-old Luke's room, you would see like, hey, what are your favorite things? It'd be Crash Team Racing, Sonic Adventure 2, SpongeBob, and Hot Wheels. I guess that's the ones I got. I was really into Hot Wheels. I still have all mine at home back in Nebraska, about 1,000 of them, and I still go buy them every once in a while. At my office at work, I have a few, just like on my desk. But I guess Hot Wheels would be the one, I guess, that because I haven't talked about it as much on the podcast as much as Star Wars and Sonic and Crash, but I feel like I had a lot of the same interests that most other kids really had, but having the older brothers helped me get into a few things a little earlier maybe than some others.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I kind of want to switch gears to your music, your love of music. We've talked about that extensively. We have not talked about that on the podcast, however. So I want to hear, like, who did you grow up listening to with you, like your parents and your brothers, and when did you start branching off to finding your own direction with music?
So I might have talked about it before, but we ran a church, my family did, when I was young. So I grew up listening to a lot of the Christian music scene growing up. So one of my first favorite artists was Toby Mac from DC Talk, his solo stuff. So and of
right
course, so it was like growing up the Christian music scene. It was that I loved VeggieTales as a kid as well. But it was like Toby Mac and a few other like of the big artists, Newsboys. I remember though, right around maybe 2005, my Reliant K was a band I started to get into. Like a lot of the people too. Some of the other just big pop punk and alternative stuff that was on the radio at the time, because that was like at its peak. Yellow Card was big, Reliant K was blowing up, Good Charlotte, My Chemical Romance, all these Blink-182, all these bands were super popular at the time, and so I had a few songs here and there that I liked, but it was really roughly probably 2006, 2007 where I really started to like discover a lot of music, where I was online a lot more, so I found a bunch of bands. I found websites that I could get music that may not have been the most legal ways, but
we've all been there.
But I started to really get into like Reliant K a lot, and Switchfoot and Yellow Card, and it really stayed with those and a couple other bands for a while, and then I would listen to a handful of stuff here and there. Under Oath is a band that really got me into more heavier music. With growing up in the Christian music household, there was a channel we had on Dish Network called Angel One, and so they had a show on there called TVU 10 Most Wanted, and it would just be a top 10 music video show, but it was all Christian music bands, but it'd be ones like Reliant K, Switchfoot, ones that were having mainstream success, and so that introduced me to Under Oath and Demon Hunter, Family Force 5, a bunch of these bands that really started to shape some more of my musical tastes as I continued to grow older. But and then probably a big turning point was also right around 2012, right around sophomore, junior high school. I really started to fall in love with the Punk Go series. I listened to a few albums earlier, but I found a few of the newer ones of those right before Punk Go's Pop 5 came out, and that was a way to open up a bunch of bands, because it'd be, I like this cover that this band Memphis Mayfire did of Grenade by Bruno Mars. Let's listen to the other stuff. And so I would get into some of these other bands, and so that's how I got really into the band We Came as Romans for a couple years.
Yes.
And it allowed me to find just a ton of more music that I was listening to, like a lot of the same bands, so I should have known about them, but I didn't. And so that really kind of opened the floodgates to where I was listening to a lot more new bands. That's when I found the Wonder Years and Pierce the Veil, all time, like really fell in love with All Time Low a lot more. and just kind of expand the music taste to more where they are now, where I do kind of listen to almost anything outside of country, really, but I still mainly focus on more of the pop punk and metalcore and post-hardcore scenes, where if you look, there's a website called Last FM, and I have my Spotify link to it, and so it tells me what I listen to, and so I can go and I can pull up like reports of, okay, last week I listened to 800 songs, and my most played artist was Yellow Card. I listened, I played 30 tracks by them or whatever, and so I've been tracking it consistently since the early part of 2017. And so the nice thing is I can tell, okay, I have it pulled up right now. My most played artist on Spotify since February of 2017 is Reliant K, and then Yellow Card is close. My Reliant K just passed Yellow Card within the last couple of weeks, but I have about 2,500 streams for both of them. Actually, my third highest is Sega Sound Team from all the Sonic music I listen to. But some of the other bands, Silent Planet and the Wonder Years, Being as an Ocean, Blink-182 and The Main, or some of the other ones that are high up there because I just listen to them a lot. Just really it's that about 2012, 2013, I just really grew into a lot of different bands, and then as I just continued to find a few more rose up. The Wonder Years quickly shot up to be one of my favorites. After I found Silent Planet in 2015, they shot up to one of my favorites. And others had shifted. I still love We Came as Romans, but I would, like, if you asked me, like, hey, what's if you had to name a top 10, they wouldn't be in it. Where a couple years ago, I don't even know if I would have said The Main was in it, but now they are as well. So it always shifts and evolves, but it was really right around that it really kind of cemented itself to more of like the stuff I listen to on a regular basis.
And for people who know you like intimately, they know that you go to a lot of shows. You go to big shows, but you also go to a lot of smaller shows, and you know where to find the deals. So when did you start going to, however many shows?
My first concert was Toby Mac in 2007. And so he was in Omaha. It was at the Civic Auditorium before that got torn down. It was right after his album Portable Sounds came out. Which came out in February 2007. It was like probably a week after that album came out, and so that was my first concert. And so I saw Toby Mac a bunch because he came to the Omaha area a bunch right around that time. And I saw Switchfoot at Sokol and a couple other bands here and there and some smaller stuff. But really going back to 2013, that was really kind of when I started to go to a lot more shows. I had some friends from school that they asked if I wanted to go to see the band Chunk No Captain Chunk, who I found from the Punk Goes Pop covers because they covered We Are Who We Are by Kesha, and it was just a ton of fun. And so I went to that, and that kind of again opened the floodgates where I started going to a bunch, and then I would go, and it went from in early 2012, I've seen a few dozen bands to where like now if I go and I were to make a list of who I've seen, it's a ton that I've seen just since since the April 2013. And I've mainly gone to shows at smaller venues. For those who know the venues in Omaha, at places like Sokol Underground and the Slowdown and stuff like that. So it's the ones that the headlining bands, people are going to know them. They might be on your alternative radio station, but it's not going to be a show that's going to be sold out show at the CenturyLink Center or anything like that. I've gone to a few bigger shows as well, but for the most part, most of those I go to are in more intimate venues because they're just smaller bands, and it's a ton of fun. The band I've actually probably seen the most now is the Wonder Years. I've seen them 6 or 7 times now since they opened for A Day to Remember. That was the first time I saw them live, and I was just starting to get into them. And I saw them as recent as February before everything kind of shut down.
So, Luke, what do you look like at a concert? Are you one of those guys that's jumping up and down and going crazy? Do you kind of stand back and take it all in? Or maybe a little bit of column A and column B?
Yeah, a little bit of column A and column B. Depends on the show. Depends on who I'm seeing. Depends on what part of the set it is, too. So the most recent show I went to was one of the last shows that really went on in the country. On Friday the 13th in March, I saw Silent Planet, and they were on their trilogy tour. So it was the Cow Style Boys. That was actually a local act for Atlanta. Greyhaven, Currents, Invent Animate, and then Silent Planet was the headliner. And and so it's one that was more of a chaotic show that I was moving around a lot more. But like the Wonder Years, when I was seeing them, it was a half acoustic, half like full electric set for them. And so like I was definitely moving around for the acoustic, but like an acoustic set is different than a metalcore show with what you're doing. But it all depends too, like how I'm feeling. Sometimes I just want to kind of more just like bop my head and move around a little bit. Other times I'm ready to throw down. But just kind of a mixture of everything. Each show I kind of do a mix of everything. So
Now this is going to be a little bit deeper. I don't even know how to begin to describe this because it could be really vague. I'll try to make it a little bit more specific. Do you discover certain bands, and what bands have you discovered in a certain state of mind, where you're in a certain mood or something like that? Maybe you're having an excellent week and you start listening to more happier stuff, and then you discover bands you didn't know. Or are you ever in like a really, really dark state and you start discovering, heavier bands that you wouldn't have normally during the circumstances?
So I don't really know, honestly, because like all the bands I've discovered, it's like some of my favorite bands I've discovered in more rough times. It wasn't because I was searching for them, where others it would be like one of my favorite bands that helped me just kind of like when just like junior year of high school, like when I was going through a bad breakup and a lot of my friends were having a lot of drama. Like one of the bands I got really into was stuff like I got more into heavier music. I got really into more Yellow Card even then too, but it wasn't one that I was actively seeking out a band to help me feel better. Where like some of the other bands I found that are a lot more sad and depressing, I found at some of the happiest moments of my life. So it hasn't really been one that say I'm looking for. It's a tough time. Let me go find someone, and then a happier time. I guess a good one is during more of a rough time, I found the artist Hotel Books, which is a spoken word poetry group, and it's pretty sad stuff too, but it wasn't one that I was actually looking for, like, oh, I want to find some really like emo stuff. It just was, I found who he was, and it was around the same time that I attached to some of his songs maybe a little more when I found him than when I would have 2 years earlier, 2 years later, but...
And for your relationship, what have you introduced Abby to, or who have you introduced Abby to, and who has Abby introduced to you?
So let's see. So we knew what we connected on was our love for a lot of the same music. It was Knuckle Puck Lyrics, which is a pop punk band that got us to start talking, and one of the biggest ones that I think if you were to ask for the same question, that's like, hey, who's someone that Luke showed you that like not really changed your life, but like really changed you. And one of them would be a band called Let It Happen. They were a smaller band from Ohio that they put out one of my favorite just overall albums as a whole, called Cause Plus Effect. And it's a super catchy record. It has just a ton of fun songs, and for her that album reminds her of when she was studying abroad in Italy. And it was just a band that I honestly can't remember how I found them. I remember I found them, and then a few months later, they were on the farewell tour for Motion City Soundtrack before they broke up. And it was not too long after they put out Cause Plus Effect, and we were just like, hey, and we both started listening a lot, and we like completely fell in love with the band. They just broke up last year too, unfortunately. And they put out a single, but they never put out a full follow-up from their album, and it's just like, oh, I got the odds today. But in terms of like artists she may have shown me, that one I can't fully know. I mean, she did introduce me to the band Broadside, and while she loves them a lot more than I do, like they're a really fun band. But probably one that was able to get me into more was the Main. For one reason or another, I never really could get into them outside of a couple of songs, and she just kept trying, and then I ended up really falling in love with them after their album American Candy came out, and so that would be one. But yeah, luckily since we both had a lot of the same ones, like I was able to get her into Yellow Card and Reliant K More, but like she knew who they were and she liked some of their stuff. We just kind of helped expand each other's love for some bands, not as outside of a couple here or there.
Mm-hmm. And so we can kind of change gears back to overall geekiness. What are some video games that you haven't crossed off your bucket list? What are some shows you want to cross off your bucket list, and so on? Movies, perhaps, too.
So video games, I guess like one of the bigger ones is the BioShock games. I've heard a ton of great things about those. I have them downloaded on my PlayStation, ready to go once I kind of get caught up on things. Actually, I've never played any of the Uncharted games either. As much as I love Naughty Dog for what they did with the Crash Bandicoot and Jak and Daxter series and then The Last of Us, I have that gap where I have never played like any of their action-adventure series there with Uncharted. Mm-hmm. And again, I have those because of PlayStation Plus, so I could totally play those. So those are some bigger ones. There's some smaller games here and there that I still want to get. One is a game called Everything. It came out about 3-4 years ago now, and it's just one of those. It's like a $15. It's just a $15 game that it's not going to be something that changes the world, but it's just a sim type of game. So you can explore just a procedure generated universe, and you can control basically any object you want. You can start off as being on the subatomic level and being just like an atom, up to you can be a miniature sized planet or stuff like that. So there's a lot you can do. And it always looked fun. And then what's actually pretty crazy about it too is that it actually has a narration by, I want to say Alan Watts. It just has like a bunch of old Alan Watts recorded philosophy quotes that he just like reads as you're going through the game. And so that was always one that looked interesting. It actually got put out onto the Switch a couple years ago. I mean, about a year and a half ago too. So it's one that I never bought it, and hopefully someday I can just shell out the $15 or whatever to buy it. There's some other ones I just can't think of off the top of my head right now. Like I haven't
you don't have to
played
name
through
all of them if you don't want to.
Yeah, I haven't played through all of. There's a couple Sonic games that I've only played bits and pieces of, so it'd be fun to go play through all of them, especially a lot of the Nintendo exclusive ones. I have Lost World now because it's on PC and I was able to get it for a couple dollars. But there's not a whole lot of ones yet that I can think of. Like, oh yes, these ones outside of the couple I've already listed.
Mm. Now, shows that you have not been to or artists you haven't seen live. Now, who's on that bucket list that you want to cross off? Wow, someone was an angry driver.
So, the artists, the two that are the top of my list for artists that I have not seen that I want to would be Explosions in the Sky, which is an instrumental band. Fuck.
You are a tired boy.
Explosion in the Sky, and then Blink-182. I was supposed to see Blink-182 a couple years ago, but then Travis Barker, the drummer, had to have surgery, and they had to cancel the rest of their tour. And so I was supposed to see them in Omaha about 2 years ago. So, of course, but it's those are the two that it's just like yes, because I've seen Reliant K multiple times. I got to see Yellow Card once before they broke up. I've seen Silent Planet and Being as an Ocean a few times. It'd be nice to see Being as an Ocean in a full set, not a Warped Tour condensed set.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's really those are the two that it's okay. I have never seen these guys. I really want to, because most of my other favorite bands I've able to at least catch half of a set for.
What about bands that you will never be able to see? They broke up long before you were able to attend live shows.
One of them would be a band called The Elijah, which they were a British like post-hardcore band that they broke up roughly 2013, 2014. They're one of their singers is actually now in Being as an Ocean, but they have a wonderful record that they put out in 2012 called "I Loved, I Hated, I Destroyed, I Created," and it has a lot of like long interludes and just like very emotional lyrics. It's a really incredible album, but by the time I found them in like 2015, they had already been broken up for like a couple years. So that would be one. Of course it'd be fun to say I saw someone like the Beatles or Nirvana or whatever, but
yeah.
Being able to see a Blink-182 show with Tom, Mark, and Travis instead of Matt Skiba, as much as I love Skiba, like that'd be fun too. But that's probably not going to happen either.
Mm-hmm. What does a perfect album look like? Do you have any albums that you think are perfect or near perfect, or what would one look like?
Basically any Wonder Years album from 2010 to 2015, any Yellow Card album from Ocean Avenue to their last album, Forget Not Slowed Down Reliant K. There's like for one reason or other, like some of these albums that like some of my favorite albums, they're perfect in my eyes in just about every way.
Mm-hmm.
So like honestly, like if I tried to name a perfect album, it would take me way too long because I'd list off a bunch.
Mm. What are usually the topics that they touch on in these albums? Like,
I mean, each album's different. Like one of my favorite Ryan K album would probably now be Forget Not Slow Down, and that one is just kind of just how the lead singer dealt with after him and his fiance broke up, and so it's a lot more emotional. Where something like Yellow Card's album Lift a Sail is the opposite. It's a lot more about some of the times when the lead singer Ryan Key was falling in love with his then wife, or with the Wonder Years. They had a 3-album cycle of The Upsides, Suburbia, and The Greatest Generation, where it's kind of just like about growing up. And so The Upsides is all about when you're graduating college, and Suburbia is when you're starting to like leave for your own thing, and The Greatest Generation is when you're just kind of like the culmination of all that. Mm-hmm. And so I mean, it's like each one's different. It's not like I can say, okay, this album's perfect to me because it talks about this subject or that subject. It's just because the collection of the songs and what it's all about in my eyes is just amazing.
Perhaps that question put the potential in a box, but I do have another kind of big question that you could expand on for a little while, or maybe you just don't even think about it. If you were to help produce an album or a game or a television show, what would that look like? Which one would you go for, and what would that look like?
I would probably go for a video game, because I feel like that one would be a little easier to do than say an album, because like I can't tell you like what like I said, like I can't tell you like why I think some of the albums are perfect, besides the fact that I just like really like them. Like I can't tell you like what makes When the End Began by Silent Planet more special than say an album by like a different metalcore band that I don't care for. Besides like the fact that it's just a better written album and better produced, like the song like that. I can't listen to one song and tell you, okay, because of X, Y, and Z, it's I wouldn't be able to produce that myself. So I'd probably do some more like a video game. And honestly, like it would be kind of like some of the same things I've said before on the show. I'd want to see some sort of successor to some of my favorite games where we take what's gone on in the series, like a Sonic Adventure 3, where we take what we've learned from what people like and don't like from the adventure titles and take some stuff from the newer games and put it into one, big kind of celebration title like what we got with Sonic Mania, but with the adventure style games.
Johnny, did you want to hop in anywhere?
Nothing right now, but I'll hop in if I when I think of something as you're going along.
Kind of going outside of geek culture in general. You have a time machine. You want to go backwards in time to view something or to live in a certain time. Where are you going?
That's a hard one because do I want to go experience something that's like important to human history? I want to go experience something that's more selfish. Oh, that's a tough one actually. There's a few that pop up to my head. Like I would obviously like a time machine one. What'd you do? My mom actually asked this to us. She always asks her team at work a question, and then she'll send the question to my brothers and dad and I through an email. And it was, would you go back to the future or to the original movie? I mean, would you go to the past, like in Back to the Future 1, or to the future, like Part 2? And we also the past. One of the reasons I said the past was so I could go see the dogs I grew up with again, one more time. Or another selfish one would be going back to the Minneapolis Miracle for the Minnesota Vikings, or some of the other like my favorite sports moments. But like those are selfish, and those are so quick and neat, like and small. Like I know it's coming if I go back and watch the Diggs play. I know it's like I go and see my dogs, and sure I'm back in 2012 or 2010 or sometime like when one of them or both of them are alive. But then I know, okay, well, when I see them, then X amount of days later is when they're gone or whatever. I don't know. That is a hard one to fully think of. It'd be cool to see a lot of just different historical moments for various reasons. Seeing stuff like the sign of the Declaration of Independence, or seeing it from afar, but like D-Day and other just important moments that have shaped just human history. But yeah, I can't fully think of like one for sure where I want to go and experience X, Y, or Z.
If you could go back in time and prevent a movie from being filmed, what would you prevent?
Oof, there's a lot of bad movies I've seen. Probably Avatar, the Last Airbender movie. And actually have someone who knows the source material.
Is there a video game that was the very first video game to thoroughly mindfuck you? What was it? Like not just in its production side, but like maybe its story, its style of play, as well as its production.
I can't really think of any game that has, because it's like The Last of Us got me emotional, but like, and I guess I was surprised by some of the twists in here and there, but it wasn't one that I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, it wasn't like when you see the plot twists of movies like the plot twist that, if you guys ever watch The Prestige, that happens in that. Like that one is just like, what? Where
don't tell me.
Yeah, where we're like a video game one where it's like when like the start when Sarah dies in The Last of Us, it's like, oh my gosh, they killed her. And where it's not as much of like a what
not like a Sixth Sense or anything like that.
Yeah, it wasn't anything like that. Where like there's a lot of moments that have caught me off guard. That was one. Another one was in Wolfenstein 2. You actually technically lose for a bit and you get your head chopped off. Oh, wow. But like your like freedom fighter resistance team, they go and they get your head real fast before like it's gone, and they reattach it to a body so that way you can like still be there. But like that was more just like, whoa, okay, I guess I wasn't expecting this. But there wasn't anything that's more of like a whoa type of thing.
Are there any movie sequels that were never made that you wish had a sequel?
I don't know. That's another hard one, because it's like Some of my favorite movies, like I just don't know like where you would go in a sequel to something like Inception or Interstellar. Like, sure, you could probably find something like Interstellar. I think is left a little more open. You could have a sequel, but I don't see like where you can get sequels in some of my favorite movies personally. So, not really off the top of my head. I'd love to see maybe a sequel to like more in Star Wars. I guess would be one.
Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. How long do you think you would last in a zombie apocalypse? Let's say a Left 4 Dead style zombie apocalypse.
Oh, geez. That's the worst kind.
I don't know.
I'd
The
say
Last
so.
of Us, they have like spores that travel throughout the air.
Well, it's because they're not technically zombies. They're infected from the cordyceps virus.
Yeah, Connor.
They're still
There's
living.
there's
virus.
zombies. There's zombies.
Yeah.
I get it. There's zombies.
I don't know honestly because like I don't have any like guns or any like I have like knives for like cutting food, but I don't have like machetes or anything like that. So like unless I was able to somehow get weapons, I don't know how I'd be able to survive super long. Because it's hopefully I could, but like unless I was able to get a hold of some things to defend myself a little better, I'm like sure I'm like strong in a way, but I'm not like ripped or in like amazing shape either. So who knows? Not very long probably though.
I don't know if you spend a lot of time thinking about like if you ever had to fight, how would you fight? But if you were ever in a setting like that, what do you envision yourself, like what weapon do you envision yourself being the best at, like having a sort of a natural ability at?
Oof.
Very
You're asking
random
all these hard
question.
questions. You're asking all these hard questions, man. I don't even fully know. I've never shot a gun before, so I couldn't tell you. Oh yes, a medium-sized rifle or a shotgun, or I've held a lightsaber, and but I maybe a baseball bat, I guess, because I did play baseball for a bit and I had a good swing. So,
Do you ever hit a home run?
I don't think so. But I also stopped playing baseball when I was like 8.
Oh man, that's like when you're like at your pinnacle, man. Actually, that would be like when Blake was at his pinnacle, winning the Little League World Series or something like that. Anyways, he's not the topic of conversation.
If you could have any superpower, what superpower would you want?
Superman, so I can have them all. Yet
One superpower.
that is the power, Superman.
Superman is not a power.
I said it is. Fine. The power that Delson Rowe has in Infamous Second Son, so I can absorb everyone else's other powers. Yet.
That was technically, it was fair as a fair question.
It's that is what his power is. His power is to absorb other powers.
It's basically wishing for more wishes.
Exactly.
What's your social security number?
And your mother's maiden name.
Yeah.
6969.
Okay.
696969.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Okay. And your mother's maiden name?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. And what street did you live on as a child?
America.
Okay. All right.
So, what is your favorite decade for music and why?
Either the 2000s or 2010s, because that's when basically all of my favorite albums were out.
If you could put 5 musical artists in one band for a supergroup, who would it be?
Ooh. I would do Travis Barker on drums. And then I don't know what I would do after that. Probably Rory Rodriguez from Dayseeker would be on at least one of the vocals. June Sonoy from Sonic.
Good,
Sonic
good,
games
good
on
choice.
guitar.
Absolutely.
And then let's see, who would I put on bass? I don't honestly. I'm kind of drawing a blank on who I would do for the other two. For sure, those three. That'd be a ton of fun.
Do you have this isn't necessarily a question that we can put into, like, we don't have to put this in because it's kind of out of left field. But out of curiosity, if you could fan cast some of the Sonic characters in the next few movies for the Sonic movie franchise, who would you want to play who?
Like, who would I want to be like the voice of Shadow and Knuckles and all that?
Right.
Or
yeah.
like, who would I want to have in it besides them?
Well, both. Like, who would you want in it, and then who would you want to see voice each of those characters?
So I don't honestly know who I'd want to see voice like the characters, because like I like the voice actors that have done them in the games, and like great Ben Schwartz was great as Sonic. There's not like a voice actor I see and I think, oh yes, you are Shadow the Hedgehog if you were his voice. Like I said a couple weeks ago, I want Barack Obama in the Sonic movie so he can chuckle and say, "You mean the Chaos Emeralds?" But besides that, I don't know, man. But just give me Obama.
All right. I think the last question before we move on to recommendations and our reviews. Who would you want to play yourself in a biopic about your life? Biopic, a biopicture.
Well, let's see. Who is? Hold on. I have to do a quick.
And it can't be the obvious choice, Brad Pitt. It has to be someone else.
Who does the hottest man alive list every year? Let's see. People Magazine, sexiest man alive. There we go. So let's see. Who was the sexiest man alive this year? John Legend was John Legend can play me. I know.
I can see it.
Spitting image of it.
Yeah.
Well, so it's funny. So the most recent ones, it was before him. It was Idris Elba, Blake Shelton, and The Rock. So it's I don't have a southern twang to my voice, so I couldn't really be Blake Shelton.
Maybe The Rock could play me then, and then
there you go.
Idris Elba could play Connor.
I'll do Chris Hemsworth. There we go. You can play me.
Well, look, thank you for letting us take a
beautiful and Australian.
You really are. Thank you for letting us take a deeper dive into your interests and letting us pick your brain. And a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Luke.
We'll have to do this in a little over a month for Johnny.
Jonald.
Yes. And then we'll have to wait till December for Connor because he's a little boy and has to be born on New Year's Eve.
Why couldn't I have been born earlier? I was born way too late.
Yeah, you were born a whole 6 months after me, little boy.
I know. I have to wait longer than anyone else for my birthday.
Exactly. You have to wait till the end of the year every year.
People don't understand. That's a long wait. All right, so Luke, tell us about the recommendation you gave us, and why did you give it to us?
Yeah, so my recommendation was supposed to be a video by Kid Icarus called "I watched 287 of the worst game reviews ever." But when I sent Connor the link again, I accidentally sent him a different video by the same YouTuber, Kid Icarus, which he goes and watches 24 of his cringiest videos, and so. I guess you guys have a bonus video to watch now then too after this, but yeah, I was gonna do just something goofy again. I didn't want to give you guys another long video on Sonic, and so I was like, this will be fun, and so Kid Icarus is a goofy YouTuber. He started out doing more video game reviews as his channel grew, and now it's kind of been more of where he'll do just kind of more pop culture stuff like that, where he'll go and rewatch his old videos, or he will go and just watch some weird stuff. He had another one where he just went and spent $115 on bad PlayStation games. So he just is a fun YouTuber, and this is a good way to kind of show it off. And so while it was the wrong video that I accidentally sent, it is still a good one.
Mm-hmm. And when I watched Kid Icarus reacting to 24, I think, of his most cringy videos, it was around the time when he got started in 2011. I like Kid Icarus's sense of humor. I really like the nostalgia I got for a newer YouTube. YouTube had been around for a little while at that point, but it was still reminded me of what YouTube was like back in 2011. I completely forgot about the "I'm a snake" guy. Holy crap, that like took me back. Johnny, what are your thoughts on the video that Luke sent us?
I loved it, and I loved that I got like that there's a YouTuber that had cringy videos that he used to make when he was like in high school, and looking back and seeing like the not just the like the poor quality is not always avoidable, but like the poor just the cringiness is something that's always appreciated. And I talked to Connor about this a few days ago, but there's a YouTube channel floating around with about a dozen or so, maybe a little more than that, videos of myself and my friends that are equally as cringy. And I someday will show you guys that channel, but today is not going to be that day. So I rewatched pretty much all of them last week, and watching this video of Kid Icarus definitely reminded me of my own videos, and I'm just like, oh, like this. He talked about like there was the cleaning was like a mystery, like a horror mystery, and I was like, yep, I did one of those, and and he did there was something else that he mentioned. He's like, well, you got to do one of these. I'm like, yep, I did. It was like an ad, like a fake ad for a fake product or something like that. I'm like, yep, I did one of those too, and so like as he was talking about all these, I was like, man, this is making me uncomfortable because it's very real for me right now. So someday down the line, I'll maybe one of my recommendations will be to watch all of my cringy videos.
I don't know if we can survive something like that.
You will never let me hear the end of it, so I'm probably going to try to appreciate you not having seen it yet until the moment that I do show you guys. So
all right, so we've got two recommendations for this week. Then we will watch that video you sent. The one you originally
because it basically. What, like I said, yeah, his channel, if you were to look at his old videos, for the most part would be video game reviews, and then the occasional compilate like my top 10 games that got under my skin, or top 10 most disappointing games, my favorite PS2 games, stuff like that. But then more recently he started to do a couple of different other like goofy stuff. But all of his 2020 videos has evolved to more of just like some just weird stuff, and especially right now in the pandemic, it's some fun stuff to look forward to. And so yeah, his 24 worst videos ever was a good one. But yeah, the worst game review one. Wait till you watch that one. It's pretty insane. I briefly explained it on the last episode, but there was this channel that it uploads these old 90s public access television video game reviews, and they're just horrifically bad. It makes his videos look like masterpieces, but it's funny too, just because Kid Icarus, he is like a month older than Johnny. He's going to be 26 in like a couple days, so he's he's around our age, and he's doing all these same. Just like he had all these same videos that we probably also would have been making if we were a lot more like into the YouTube scene of actually like putting our videos together at the same, the late middle school, early high school days.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't wait to watch that. I really liked. I don't know much about Kid Icarus, but I really did like his sense of humor. So I'm definitely going to enjoy
funny.
that.
So, rate the video that you guys watched that I sent the wrong link to.
So for the cringy videos video, I would rate it 8.5 out of 10 cringy videos.
I would actually, yeah, that's about right. 8.5 out of 10 talking vacuum cleaners. Yes.
Alrighty, so that means then it would be Connor's turn.
For people who know me, they know I'm a really big Bob Dylan fan, but I usually go out of my way to not recommend Bob Dylan albums for fear of making your ears bleed. But I think there's plenty of musical ability in all of his songs that you can get past some of the more throaty and nasally singing styles that he has in like a majority of his songs. And so I wanted to recommend Bringing It All Back Home, his fifth studio album released in like 1965. This was the first of his LPs to break into the US top 10. And the very first opening track, Subterranean Homesick Blues, actually became his first single to chart in the US, and it actually reached number 39. Half of the album is acoustic and half of it is electric. Bob Dylan went electric at the Newport Folk Festival in July of 1965, and this album this came out just a couple months before he went public with his electric style. This album was actually a huge controversy because it really alienated a lot of his folk fans that were really, really devoted to him and started calling him the voice of his generation and stuff like that. So this was a huge controversy. Then when he went electric, he was booed off the stage until he went back and got his acoustic guitar, because they were so used to just him, his guitar, and his harmonica.
Alrighty, so we'll have to listen to that and then give our thoughts on it. Can you find it on Spotify?
Yes, you can.
Perfect.
And yes, I'm being truthful. You actually can.
And then, so Johnny is the full album up on YouTube as well then, since Johnny doesn't have Spotify Premium. So you can listen to it front to back.
No.
I'm sure I'll be able to find it. Yeah, I'll be, even if it's not all together, I'll be able to just find.
Just make sure you listen to that album and not half of another album, like last time that one of us listened to an album.
What? I would never do that.
And yes, you can find the entire album, all 11 songs, on YouTube.
Cool.
There we go. So which album again, Connor, so for those listening again?
Bob Dylan's Bringing It All Back Home.
Bringing It All Back Home. There we go. So, perfect.
Yeah. All right, so thank you guys for listening to episode 19 of Rocket Talk. Please like, share, subscribe to us if you haven't. You can find us on Anchor and Spotify as well. And then please let us know what you think of our recommendations, what you want to hear from us in Nerd News Now. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.